And, speaking of vice presidents, obviously J.D. Vance just got selected by Donald Trump as his own vice president. J.D. Vance wrote Hillbilly Elegy and is a, ultra conservative kind of MAGA associated, quote unquote, populist right winger. I am interested because you're probably our number one friend of the show who's from the Appalachian region. What did you make of his big, speech last night at the RNC, assuming you checked out some of it? I thought it was a total dud, a complete flop. I think this guy has zero charisma, zero talent. And honestly, I don't even get any Appalachian vibes from him. He sounds like he's just some normal dude from any state. He has no West Virginia energy.
Yeah, he's no Richard Ojeda is what we were talking about. There's some Richard people who kind of, you can tell him.
Yeah, exactly. He just he just comes off like a venture capitalist, which is what he is. But what did you make of it?
Well, I'm from one town over from him. So I live in London, Kentucky. So Jackson, Kentucky, I know people. I mean, I know some of the Blantons from over there. They're Blantons here, and that's what his mama and papa were. I had a mama and papa. I grew up on the creek. I grew up in the rivers. He spent some summers here, and he's from Middleton, Ohio, and that's no diss on Middleton. They've had their own struggles, and it is a struggling community as well. But he is a part of Appalachia because his grandparents were, but he doesn't know our culture. And I listened to his book last night, and I was
the whole thing
so angry. The thing about the speech, and the thing about it is some people are going to listen to the speech and it's going to resonate because he says all the things, right? Like bring back work. He's actually talking about economic issues. He ironically talks about, no more spending on war, essentially, no more handing out, all these countries money, even though everyone in Congress supports giving another $1 billion to Israel, for instance.
Oh, yeah. He himself supports AIPAC, takes money from AIPAC.
And he went and fought in the Gulf War. He talks about how, and there are a lot of people that did that to get out of poverty. So I understand that, poverty is the draft. But he was hyped, for the war. And he talks about it in his book, still in a positive way. You can change. I mean, he wrote that back in 2017. But something tells me when Peter Thiel drops $10 million into your election campaign, you really haven't changed. But his whole thing was about, the whole book is almost about celebrating the mass flight out of southeastern Kentucky, which that mass flight out of southeastern Kentucky after the coal mines abandoned us and left our counties destitute, was that it actually impacted our region negatively. When people leave our region, it impacts our region negatively. His whole book is about getting away, escaping poverty. He's basically the Clarence Thomas of southeastern Kentucky. He's tokenizing my community as that he's a part of it when he's really not. I mean, he says Appalachia. No offense,
right.
Having heard you say that too. But I was like, dude, how are you from southeastern Kentucky saying Appalachia? No one.
Appalachia.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
that's the indigenous term. But I know some people in Ohio say Appalachia. Some people in Pennsylvania say it. But people around here, we say Appalachia. And we're actually, when people say Appalachia, it's like nails on a chalkboard for us. So, but I understand there's people that have other dialects. However, he's posing himself as someone from here. Let me tell you a couple quotes from his book. He said in his introduction, it's not about the boom and the bust of the economy that we know exists. It's not about the politicians. It's not that the corporations left and, ravaged the region. He says it's about reacting to bad circumstances in the worst possible way. It's about a cultural threat that increasingly encourages social decay instead of countering it. So he blames all of our poverty on the people here. He says that his grandparents struggled because when they got to Ohio, they were operating on an ancient family structure from the hills. What the fuck does that mean?
It's so funny too.
Structure.
Go and pander to a bunch of Republicans in a room who want to do nothing more but regress society and turn back the wheels of time to a wider, straighter, more homogenized society. Meanwhile, he's going to plagiarize his own ancestry, take the elements of it that he wants to create a caricature for his own benefit and step on top of all the people he left behind as he climbs to the next rung of power. Right. It's pretty ridiculous, and it's so transparent too. And it rings true to me because Zeynab, you are much closer to the Appalachian culture than I am, but my family comes from that region, and I see a lot in him because it would be like me kind of trying to claim that for myself when that's not the life that I lived. I grew up in Kansas City, Missouri. Okay. I lived a very different life than the family members I have that still live in Kentucky. It's a world of difference, right? My grandfather, when he was, came back from the Vietnam War, he moved to Kansas City and opened up a fucking business on Truth Avenue. Very different lifestyle than the Appalachian Avenue. I feel connected to it. I feel a kinship to it because it's my ancestry. It's my history. It's where the fuck my family comes from. But I could never come out here and be like, yep, I'm here to, be from Appalachia, and I'm here to tell you all this, and God damn it, we need to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps because damn, ain't no call no more. We got to find something else to do, y'all. You know what I mean? Like, that would be so inauthentic, and it would be so so wrong. But it seems to be so heavily rewarded in the case of this guy, JD Vance.
Yes, and you know who propped him up? You know who's put him in these positions? It's people like Ron Howard that directed a movie. The movie made me cry. I mean, she looks identical to my mom almost in this movie. Like it's freaky. His mama, Glenn Close, looks just like my mama, literally. Zach, I sent you the pictures. Yeah. It's uncanny and it's very strange. And I had a similar upbringing. I had similar struggles. My mom is an amazing, strong woman, but she went through some domestic violence. We went through hardships. So I went through a similar life. So it sort of resonated with me. But in the movie, he's presented as standing up for our culture. When he's sitting at a table with a bunch of lawyers that puts him down, he stands up for himself. In the book, he talks about masking the entire time, masking his accent, pretending to be them, how you have to fit into that society, and basically how we need to be taught to fit into this society. We need to learn neutral accents. We need to learn, to let go of our toxic roots. In it, he said, what did he say about men? He said that that Appalachian men are immune to hard work.
What? Yeah, that's fucking crazy. Just it's crazy too, because you made the Clarence Thomas connection, but this is something that I think we could really expand on here, because there are a lot of poor white people who become hopeless, and then they kind of fall prey to the MAGA movement, right? They kind of buy into the story that they've been told, the Fox News, the Sean Hannity, look at what's been stolen from you by, this Mexican person or this black guy over here. Look at what he's getting because of DEI, and look at what you're not getting, right? When in reality, it's a lot of the rhetoric, and obviously there's different, struggles. I don't want to say that they're synonymous, right? But just to create an allegory right here, like a comparison, you have groups of people being told that you need to assimilate, that your dialogue isn't, as worthy as the dialogue of the people in New York City and Manhattan, that, your that Ebonics or Southern, dialectical English and all this shit is less than, because it's not sophisticated enough that if you say that you sound smart. Well, it doesn't, or you don't sound smart. Well, who the fuck gets to decide that, right? You need to go mask when you're in these, business situations, because otherwise they won't respect you. Otherwise they'll try and exploit you. Otherwise they'll otherize you and keep you out. Like, what does that sound like, right? It's a very similar effort, and yet they get poor white people to be on the side of the people who want to destroy and terminate their culture. It's crazy. And that's what the fucking head fake of a guy like JD Vance is. That's why he's like a two-faced fucking snake. You know what I mean? He's like this chipmunk looking harmless motherfucker. And you're like, oh yeah, this fat bastard. I know a million guys like this. You know what I mean? And then
someone said he looked like a Nazi Care Bear.
Exactly. There's a million different ad hominem attacks you could level at this guy.
In case anyone hasn't seen the actual speech from last night, let's play a couple minutes of it, because again, I watched it, Zach watched it, and I know you watched some of it, but some people in our audience might not be familiar with just how cringy and kind of goofy and cheesy this guy is. Like I said, I think it was a total mistake for him to try to mask his, West Virginia root or his Ohio roots, stuff like that, because
I listened to it on go ahead, Gavin. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're good. I was just going to say, I think he actually should have leaned into that stuff, because at least would have, I think about the governor of West Virginia. I think his name is Jim Justice. I'm not a fan of his policies, but he comes off like a dude from that part of the country to me. He has a little bit more, character. He has, more personality. As I said, JD Vance, he seems like he could have been raised in Orange County.
Oh, that's because he's masked himself to the point of that, and because he's from Middleton. He ain't from here.
Yeah, he's not going to sound like Tyler Childers. You know what I mean?
No, and I listened to it on 2 times speed, so maybe it was a little more energetic for me than it was in real life because it was already milquetoast on 2 times speed.
Yeah, take a look at this, guys. I think that there's actually a chance Trump is regretting his pick, especially now that Biden looks almost certain to go as the Democratic nominee. This is a disaster.
My fellow Americans and my fellow Republicans, my name is JD Vance from the great state of Ohio. Tonight, OHIO. You guys, we're gonna chill with the Ohio love. We got to win Michigan too here, so.
Like, it's not quite a full smile. It's like half a smile, like a respectful, like car salesman smile. He does that like every time he is in between sentences. It's so cringe. It's so goofy, like I said. And even when he was, delivering some of that quote unquote populist rhetoric that you mentioned, Zeynab, like, I don't think it was delivered convincingly. I don't think it's going to stick. You need an inspiring orator and someone that can really sell that kind of rhetoric, someone that can really make the American people think like, oh, this isn't just another politician promising me nice things that we all want. They all do that at this point. Even Republicans have pretty masterfully appropriated a lot of left-wing talking points and populist talking points to make the case for policies they have no intention of passing, right? And you need someone, not, it doesn't have to be at the level of like an Obama, obviously, but the reason why Obama was able to actually convince people that he was serious about hope and change is because he was such a powerful orator. He was actually able to sell people on these policies and inspire them. JD Vance, he just comes off like a, goofy dad or something, but not inspiring.
People might kind of like that normalcy and stability right now, to be honest with you. I think for some people that's going to resonate with them, because a lot of people that are in politics now, it's gotten so insane, right? And you think about the RNC, it was like 80% of it was Christofascism and extremism when you listen to the RNC. So JD Vance comes in and he's like a normal person who's actually talking about economic problems and not turning everyone into, a Christian and like taking away all their rights and stuff like that, even though he had to sprinkle in some immigrant hate in there. He definitely did. But I think he's going to be appealing. I noticed that there wasn't a lot of views of the RNC last night, which is interesting. So, but there have been millions of views of Hillbilly Elegy, the movie on Netflix. And that's what worries me, is that people are going to attach to the pop culture more than they're going to attach to the speech, more than they're going to, it's funny, more than they're going to attach to any of the other part of it. They're going to watch this movie and that's going to be their come away of who JD Vance is. And it's extraordinarily deceptive, as to what he's painted as and what his actual worldviews are. They're going to come away thinking, oh, he's a regular working man, the bullshit hero journey story that neoliberals love. Like I said, neoliberals is who have gotten him to the place where he is now.
The technocrats.
Oh, yeah, 100%. It's the people in like Connecticut and stuff that tokenize Appalachia. In his book, he even talks about Mountain Dew mouth. Diane Sawyer did a
I love Mountain Dew.
I love Mountain Dew too. But Diane Sawyer did this story where she came down and she's like, she's distantly related to me, actually. I'm a Sawyer. But she came down and she's like, I came back to my home, my ancestral home of London, Kentucky and Corbin, Kentucky, which is where I'm from. And she's like, she did this story on us where people were like feeding their babies Mountain Dew in the bottle. And I was like, who the fuck does that? Where did she find these people? And I was like, oh my God. And like, she had people like heating their trailers with coal and stuff. And I was like, we're poor, but nobody has an outhouse anymore, hardly. A few people do, but that's really rare. But she found like the, people that needed the most help, honestly. So she shouldn't have demonized them in that way. And she painted our whole region as we're too stupid to even feed our babies milk. Are you crazy? And she coined it Mountain Dew Mouth. And he talks about how he learned so much about our region from Diane Sawyer's piece. And I was like, everybody hates her, by the way. Everybody hated that piece from here. Everybody hated it. Like, if you were
ironic
here, you would know about this bullshit. Oh, go ahead. What?
Oh, you're good. I was just going to say that it's so ironic that all these Republicans who, claim to hate Hollywood and, say all the liberals, there's Hollywood elites and stuff. Meanwhile, they're being introduced to their, potential next vice president via a fucking Ron Howard directed Hollywood movie on Netflix, which isn't even accurate at all, probably, to the realities of this guy's life.
Well, they're all kind of neoliberals. The thing is, like, there's not a lot of class separation, or there's not a lot of cultural separation between wealthy Christo-fascist in suburbia, the upper crest of the middle class, and the neoliberals in upstate New York, the upper middle class. There's not much separation. It's just that the Democratic liberals, the liberals that are Democrats, hide it more. They put the Black Lives Matter sign out in their front yard, but then when they go to purchase their home, they want to make sure that there's no Black people in their neighborhood, and they do a demographic analysis, right? They don't want any homeless shelters. Like in New York, they were in part of Jersey, they were protesting against a homeless shelter because it would bring their home values down. So the upper echelon of the Republican Party and the upper echelon of the Democratic Party, like this strata, this upper level, upper middle class sort of culture in our country are very similar, even though they pretend to be on two opposite spectrums. I mean, you guys have encountered Blue MAGA probably a gazillion times.
What, us? No,
never. But I think that J.D. Vance will appeal to the neoliberals too. I bet you money there is going to be people in the mainstream media, MSNBC, because they already have been. I saw a special with him 3 weeks ago on MSNBC where they were talking about how he was just a poor Appalachian from southeastern Kentucky, poor guy, and he finally made it to Yale. Well, I tell you what, buddy, I went to college. I did all the things you were supposed to do. I got 2 degrees just like J.D. Vance did, and I did it as a single mom working full time. How about them apples?
There you go.
I was accepted into Yale, but guess what? They don't have programs for single moms, and you have to live on campus. So I couldn't go, and I couldn't go also because I couldn't afford it because Trump stripped and Bush and Trump stripped all the financial aid that you had to be able to go to college. So, and he's opposed to tuition-free college and admits in his book that he got to go out of help, from financial aid. Mm-hmm. Some of his family got food stamps, but he talks about how people are on SNAP benefits and dare to drive cars and have cell phones. It's like, dude, you got the help. It's the classic case of I got mines, so I'm going to kick the ladder out from anyone else climbing it up. Because I'm proof that, he's another person he reminds me of is Candace Owens. She's like, if I could do all this without a college degree, then racism isn't real all of a sudden, But for him, it's hillbillies really are stupid and lazy. And, the men just don't want to work. I worked with this one guy, one place, one time, and he quit early, even though he had a pregnant wife. So that means all hillbillies, are this way. And then he turns around and he presents himself as a populist. And even though he's that kind of elite that my memo would call him an educated dumbass that doesn't know his ass from a hole in the ground, Yeah. And that's what he is. He's an educated dumbass. He's the kind of people that leave our region and then they think they're so much better than us that they look down their noses at us once they leave. And that's the most despised kind, but I'm afraid my people won't know what he authentically is, because if they go and they watch this movie, and they're going to be proud that someone is VP from our region. That never fucking happens ever. I want to be proud that someone is a VP pick from my region, but I can't be because it's J.D. Vance and he's just another elite asshole that is tokenizing us once again, just like people have tokenized us for generations. I mean, we've been tokenized. People would come down and take pictures of us, dirty Appalachians on their wooden porches. You guys know that trope, right? those old black and white pictures everyone has seen, the trope of the toothless Appalachian, the ignorant hillbilly. He doesn't understand. One other thing I'll say is he acts like he's pro-labor. He doesn't know anything about the Appalachian history. I've never heard him. He even said that the name of his county was had bloody in the title because it was he said because so many people died during the Vietnam War. And I was like, dude, what the fuck are you talking about? It's called that because of the Appalachian uprising in the coal fields where people were shot by the coal companies. Redneck, that term comes from the labor movement. Kentucky and Appalachia is the heart of the labor movement. He couldn't understand why his grandparents were Democrats. Yeah. He couldn't understand why they were union supporting as they were and why they were Democrats. Because Appalachia was the heart of labor, dude. That's where the term redneck comes from. It comes from the red bandana they wore as a symbol. The guy knows nothing, essentially. But my biggest fear is people aren't going to know it, and they're going to think he's a regular populist, and it's going to give him an edge over whoever else could potentially beat Trump. Not that I'm voting for either. I'm not voting for Biden because I'm not voting for anyone who does a genocide ever. But I do worry that JD Vance, he's young. He's that speech was milquetoast to sell. I agree, Gavin. But I do think that we kind of want some normalcy. A lot of people want some normalcy. They want to feel some stability, and they want people to be talking about their issues. And in that speech, he did talk about our real issues in some of it. Even though I knew it was bullshit, if I was just a regular unplugged person, I might listen to him and go, well, wow, somebody's out there actually talking about how NAFTA fucked us over. Now, I haven't heard that.
That's a good point. I appreciate the pushback because, like I said, I thought it was, delivered with zero riz, as the kids say. But, you are right. It might be part of the reason that Trump picked him to kind of balance out his own crazy style of communication with someone who is just totally boring. So, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, really appreciate you coming by the show today, Zeynab, to kind of dispel some of the, I guess, mythology that he's tried to perpetrate about himself, all of his like stolen, I don't want to call it stolen valor, but basically like stolen ancestry, right? Like it's basically cultural appropriation in a really unique form from this guy. And so we really appreciate you taking the time to come on here because I know you're afraid that people might not, see through this guy.